Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star episode number 198 based on novel. So let's start. This I know. Luo Feng nodded, to have one that stayed and taught him, even if one had a teacher, that teacher would rarely follow him around all the time. This was definitely a rare opportunity. Luo Feng naturally knew of this. Everybody knows this. Tru Yang couldn't help but say on the screen, however, there is a trick to picking your teacher. Trick? Luo Feng asked curiously. According to what he knew, wasn't it simply sending out a request saying you'd prefer one proficient in gold and space laws, or spirit weapons etc. as your teacher? And the teachers they gave to the Primal Region members were at least official level Undyings. Even though Emperor level Undyings and Universe Country Leader level Undyings could be one's teacher too, they had to be willing to do so. The Virtual Universe Company had no way to force them. And these huge figures, like Tru Yang Emperor, had no way to always stay by Luo Feng's side. Hence, the teachers were normally official level Undyings. Of course there's a trick. Tru Yang smiled on the screen. I know you wish to find an Undying teacher proficient in gold and space, and the fusion of these two laws. Luo Feng nodded. However, there are many Undyings like that. The Virtual Universe Company will send one over, and you just have to accept him. Tru Yang Emperor smiled. How do you find the most suitable teacher for you? That's where I'll have to make a move. One could have many teachers. However, their positions might be different. If one truly personally went to look for a teacher, the relationship would be much closer and real. Like Tru Yang Emperor. And those teachers who purely taught the public classes that Luo Feng attended, those were much more distant than others. The teacher that the Virtual Universe Company would arrange to stay in his villa and teach him, they would have a close relationship, but Luo Feng wouldn't have to personally go request him. When you get back, send a request in the mail, add this one line. On the screen Tru Yang smiled, say you highly respect the Undying Bubulu, and you really wish for him to be your teacher. Bubulu? Luo Feng understood when he heard, he should be some very powerful person. If I write it, it'll go through. Luo Feng was suspicious. Whether or not the Undying comes or not was totally up to that Undying himself. This I will settle. Tru Yang laughed loudly on the screen. Thank you, teacher. Luo Feng felt gratitude within. This was a true teacher. In the universe, the relationship between a teacher and his student exceeded even that of blood ties, as the longer one lived, like for trillions of years. Even if their families could live up to 1,000 eras, they would still eventually die one day. When one's family dies, those later generations that came many years later, one either has never even seen them or they died much earlier. How could that relationship compare to that of a student and teacher? Student and teacher, the teacher instructs the disciple. When the student gets stronger, he may even someday become a right arm to the teacher. Just like how Tru Yang seriously instructs his students step by step, it was almost like pampering his disciples altogether. That day, Luo Feng immediately sent out the request. Following what his teacher had instructed, he first keyed in his request and then added the line of respecting the Undying Bubulu. In truth, he had never heard of this Bubulu before his teacher mentioned him. Bubulu, according to what his teacher said, even though this Bubulu was an official level Undying, in truth his battle abilities could almost reach Emperor level already. Luo Feng thought, an Undying that was almost Emperor level, he was considered a huge figure in the universe already. Back then the Undying that killed his teacher Hu Yangbo was also a being close to Emperor level. Such a being, staying in his villa and teaching him? The third day, Luo Feng received a mail. In it the contents said the Undying Bubulu was willing to be his teacher. About 10 days later, Bubulu finally arrived at Luo Feng's villa. At the entrance of his villa, Luo Feng walked side by side with the bald man Dylan, quietly waiting for Bubulu to arrive. He's come, Dylan said softly. Ah? Luo Feng looked carefully. In the distance a gold light instantly tore through the skies, after which he landed right before Luo Feng, revealing his silhouette. This was a 1.6 m tall messy-haired dwarf. On his body one could smell alcohol. His gaze was reserved, occasionally revealing a flash of madness. Luo Feng pondered within. Bubulu? This dwarf that wasn't even 1.6 meter? Even though he thought so within, he still maintained absolute respect. The teacher and the leader of his guard were completely different. Even though an official level Undying was high in position, Luo Feng's Primal Region position allowed him to talk on even terms with Dylan without any sense of pressuring him. You are Luo Feng? The dwarf glanced at Luo Feng. Luo Feng greets teacher Bubulu. Luo Feng bowed respectfully. Respectful. The dwarf looked at Dylan beside. Dylan too bowed respectfully. Greetings, Lord Boobaloo. Dylan was indeed very strong and very close to an official, or could be said to almost be an official. Boobaloo, however, was almost an emperor. Their strength difference was like sky and land. True Yang really knows how to spoil his disciples. The dwarf took a few big steps and entered the villa. Luo Feng and Dylan followed behind. I don't know much about teaching disciples. The dwarf took a few strides and said loudly as he walked, however much his voice boomed, it only reached Luo Feng and Dylan. The distant large group of sector lords, domain lords and universe-level guards couldn't hear a single sound. I'm most proficient in using claws. The dwarf spoke loudly, hence I'll use my claw methods and help you comprehend the space and gold origin laws. It'll also help you learn how to fuse them. Yes. Luo Feng listened intently. Claws? The golden horned beast's most proficient trump card was the tearing sky claw. According to its inheritance memories, this move, combined with the ancient pictures he studied, and with the beast god statue that held within the ancient energies from before, claw techniques could be said to be Luo Feng's most powerful and proficient attacks. Even more so than his spirit weapons and blade moves. Of course, using his human body to unleash the claw techniques was much weaker. However, the foundation itself, he was still proficient in claw techniques. The dwarf glanced at Luo Feng, finally revealing a smile. Not bad, quite obedient. I like obedient and smart students. Let's go to your training grounds. I'll first get a grasp of your skills, and see how's your comprehension of the laws, whether you've made a wrong turn in comprehension. Of course you are a student of True Yen Emperor. Even if you've taken a wrong turn, it probably wouldn't be too bad, yes. Luo Feng immediately walked towards the training grounds. Within the training grounds, the dwarf Boobaloo and Luo Feng stood within. Simulate a space location. Boobaloo ordered. Luo Feng immediately complied, and the entire scenery in the training grounds warped, changing into a vast and endless space. Of course the space within the training grounds was only that big, hence this universe space. Luo Feng could only move within several hundred kilometers in area. The dwarf Boobaloo and Luo Feng stood in the space. Go! The dwarf Boobaloo ordered. Go unleash all your origin law comprehension, whether it's spirit weapon or close combat, it doesn't matter. Your little bit of comprehension, no matter how you unleash it, I'll be able to see everything clearly. Yes, teacher. Luo Feng immediately became a blur and unleashed his claw techniques in space. His fingers bent, almost like a beast claw, his entire being like a demon, almost like a wild beast displaying its claws. The claws tore through the universe space, so sharp and piercing it produced a glaring golden huge claw, the gold claws howling through the space. The dwarf Boobaloo was initially very casual, however, as he looked on, his face revealed a look of shock. After a while, Luo Feng became a gold light and landed beside Boobaloo, awaiting your guidance, teacher. Luo Feng said respectfully, you know claw techniques too. The dwarf Boobaloo looked at Luo Feng, his eyes already filled with more joy than before. To such powerful warriors, to be able to find a suitable disciple was extremely hard. From the information Boobaloo had gathered on Luo Feng earlier, he knew Luo Feng was a spirit reader, hence he wasn't too excited. However, True Yen Emperor asked himself. Even though Boobaloo was proud, before this emperor level undying, the pinnacle of beings, an ancient being incredibly close to becoming a universe country leader, he didn't dare be proud at all. What's more, he was requested by True Yen Emperor himself this time, hence after some discussion, he immediately accepted. Even if Luo Feng was a spirit reader, he would teach him too. However, after he discovered Luo Feng was proficient in claw techniques, the dwarf Boobaloo was truly excited from within. In terms of close combat, I've spent some time. Luo Feng said. No wonder True Yen Emperor favors you, it hasn't even been 200 years and your improvement is that shocking. And you've even trained in close combat? The dwarf Boobaloo laughed. Your claw techniques are not bad. Much weaker than Luo Fu's. Luo Feng said, not the same. Boobaloo shook his head. I've collected information and seen some of your footage. I know about the Luo Fu too, his claw techniques are very powerful. But it's headed towards a dead end. Luo Feng was curious. Your claw techniques however are powerful and limitless. The dwarf Boobaloo looked satisfied at Luo Feng. I don't see anything I need to even fix. Since you know claw techniques, then it'll be much easier to teach. From now on, I'll begin to teach you a claw technique, 3000 space. It's a technique I created myself. Through studying this technique, it'll help you comprehend the gold and space laws. Yes? Luo Feng said respectfully. The dwarf Boobaloo nodded satisfied. It was initially only because of True Yen Emperor that Boobaloo thought he just needed to be somewhat serious about the job. However, after seeing a genius so perfect in his claw techniques, he was moved too. He was prepared to immediately pass down his self-created 3000 space technique. Boobaloo didn't seem to know Luo Feng's claw techniques were from the beast god statue. Of course it was a true path. From that day, Luo Feng sent out 50% of his consciousness to study and train with Boobaloo. From learning with him, the golden horned beast within his internal world would then study it and train too. This made Boobaloo discover that Luo Feng's comprehension speed was simply too shocking. The other 50% of his consciousness he used to continue receiving the Demon Note inheritance. Demon Note Mountain, all of the 32 inheritance palaces had people in them receiving the inheritance. The main thing was that back then, Luo Feng had snatched away Mist Emperor's slot. This had shocked many other Undyings supposed to receive their slots. They all strongly requested from the Great Union to enter the palace earlier. 32 inheritance palaces, a total of 31 Undyings and 1 Universe Level 9 youth. Within the palace, the many levels of stairs extended continuously upwards. Deep into space above, there lay the shrine. On level 2316. Luo Feng sat there like a statue on the black stone stairs. Half of his consciousness was in the golden horned beast, combining his teacher Boobaloo's 3000 space technique while studying the beast god statue's wonders. Whenever he had any problems he didn't comprehend, he could ask his teacher Boobaloo. Level 2316 complete. The statue Luo Feng suddenly opened his eyes, filled with glee. Even though the qualification battles were going on before, that didn't really affect my acceptance of the inheritance. Luo Feng was joyful within. Suddenly the silhouette of Luo Fu appeared in his mind. Just like himself, Luo Fu was doing an impossible level mission while he took part in the qualification battles. However, Luo Fu wasn't as lucky as himself. 2 years, it's been about 2 years since the qualification battles passed. There still hasn't been any news of Luo Fu. Luo Feng frowned. There's no way to determine if he's actually alive or dead. Whether he was alive or dead was hard to determine. Especially in the impossible level mission special locations, if Luo Feng were to be killed within Demon Note Mountain, even having his body destroyed and hidden, and robbed after. If that ever happened, how would the virtual universe company ever determine if he was alive or dead? The more special the location, the harder it was to determine the status of a person. It's been about 2 years, Luo Fu hasn't entered the virtual universe network since then. He only lost that battle back then because he didn't show himself. If he's still alive, he should enter the virtual universe network. At least explaining to his friends. Don't tell me, he's really dead? Luo Feng frowned. Suddenly thinking about it made his heart skip a beat. Risky, consecutively taking on missions has given me lots of benefits. It's also made me proud with greater ambition. Luckily I just realized. A sense of fear flashed in his eyes. From the Blood River World mission, he had gotten a huge benefit. After which, the other dangerous level missions he did, Luo Feng only completed the basic requests. He didn't search the worlds for their hidden secrets. And since he acquired the Demon Note inheritance from the impossible mission, he excitedly deduced back then that the special mission worlds should all have some secrets. Those secrets could very well be miraculous encounters. Once he understood that theory, Luo Feng was somewhat regretting that he didn't properly search those dangerous level mission worlds. However, at this time, while he thought of Luo Fu's incident, it made him awake with a shock. I've been too blinded. Every mission's request is already extremely dangerous. Like acquiring 3 blood crystals in Blood River World, absorbing them and becoming a blood warrior. To a universe level 9 genius, that is something extremely dangerous and difficult. After all, the moment one is careless, they would meet a domain lord aboriginal and get attacked, and they cannot use any technological weapons, etc. Luo Feng thought, if I go search through the ancient god ruins secrets, search for the beast god statue secrets, one would definitely be killed without a doubt, and Demon Note Mountain, surviving here for 3 years is already an impossible level mission. Within these 3 years, even if one could hide from the Demon Notes, they might unexpectedly meet a Sector Lord Aboriginal, or a Sector Lord level beast. Surviving here for 3 years is indeed an impossible level mission. And to actually acquire the Demon Note inheritance, that is a suicide mission. Luo Feng's forehead was filled with beads of cold sweat. The place in which the Demon Note Inheritance Palace was in, even Sector Lords would die without a doubt. Even Undyings, they too had to be stronger than the average Undyings to be able to dodge all the terrifying huge beasts blocking the path. If it weren't for my Mosha body, I'd definitely be killed. Luo Feng's forehead was perspiring profusely. My luck this time was good. Next time, however, it may not be so. The other impossible level missions would probably have some huge secrets too. And to actually search for them and acquire the benefits. The danger would probably be no less than Demon Note Mountains. Demon Note Mountain has the wild beasts. And their intellect is extremely low. However, the other impossible level mission secrets, the danger that accompanies them may not be just beasts. If it was some undying guard with intellect, they would immediately kill me then. Luo Feng felt a wave of fear. The secrets hidden within these training mission worlds were like drugs. After tasting them once, it would make them addicted. However, the moment one slips up, it would cost them their lives. I have the Mosha clansman and the golden horned beast body. My survival ability is indeed stronger than the other geniuses. The usual requests of the impossible level missions, as long as I'm cautious, I'll be able to complete them. However, if I get over-ambitious and blindly search for the huge hidden secrets, I might very well lose my little life. Luo Feng thought, right, according to what teacher said, the Kuluo Fu's strength only exploded within the past couple of hundred of years. Luo Feng's eyes gleamed. Don't tell me that he discovered some huge secret encounter during one of his missions. According to Luo Feng's guess, every mission may have some hidden secret. However, he didn't think that he'd be the only one to discover them. It could very likely be that way. Because of the encounter he had a couple of hundred of years ago, he knew the flavor of such an encounter, hence during this time's impossible level mission, he probably consciously observed and searched for the secret. However, because of that it may have invited danger, finally losing his life. Luo Feng's eyes gleamed. It was likely that it happened this way. He too had guessed that every mission had some secret behind it, hence his ambition grew. Others may have been that way too. These sort of super encounters, the risks that accompany them too are just as super. I was able to dodge the dangers this time because of my Mosha body. What about next time? Luo Feng immediately grew more cautious. With a stride, he became a blur and landed on the 2317th level of stairs. Immediately, incredibly mysterious techniques began to pour into his memories. He once again began to accept more of the inheritance, causing his soul to change through the training. The training of these techniques was a lot like the soul imprint his teacher Hu Yangbo had created back then. It too caused one's soul to change and evolve, to finally be able to use the technique. This supreme demon note inheritance had gradually changed the foundation of his spirit energy. Luo Feng's soul was a domain lord level 9 soul. It took the form of a condensed crystal ball. And at this time, that crystal ball had gold markings throughout. Countless gold markings filled the soul crystal ball. They were mystical. As he continued to train the techniques, it caused the soul's gold markings to gradually increase. As they grew more and more, it made his spirit energy amplitude get stronger as well. However, there was an end to this demon note inheritance. On the 3211th level, Luo Feng knelt down on the stone stairs, his skin soaked from perspiration, his face pale, his eyes bloodshot. He couldn't help but hold onto his head, his soul incredibly fatigued. It made Luo Feng feel like he would fall asleep the moment he gave in. The piercing pain of the soul made him want to crumble. Persevere until this step of the inheritance. I have to accept all of it. Luo Feng roared within, almost like hypnotism, as he constantly told himself within, convincing himself. He knelt down on the stairs on the verge of collapse. In theory, the time spent on each step wasn't long. However, Luo Feng already felt like every second was even longer than a year. His soul was incredibly fatigued. It made him go into a semi-conscious state, to the point where he had no way to even think anymore. His thinking ability was now probably not even comparable to a normal child of Earth. Thinking speed, incredibly slow, it could stop at any time. The fatigue of the soul decreased his control of his body to its limit. He knelt on the floor, about to fall any time. Finally, the transfer of the 3211th level finally reached an end. I've finally succeeded. Luo Feng relaxed within, after which the fatigue immediately buried his consciousness, and he fell into a state of trance. Rumble. He fell on the stairs, not moving as he completely lost consciousness. After some time, he finally opened his eyes. He fiercely jumped up, surveying his surroundings. He was actually in the plaza of the Inheritance Palace, and the entrance door of the palace was shut. Luo Feng, about 5 hours after you fell asleep, you were sent to this plaza by a formless energy. And the doors of the Inheritance Palace automatically closed. Meaning, the inheritance has ended. Barbata's voice resounded within his consciousness. Luo Feng regained his calmness after. It's ended? Luo Feng laughed and looked about. There wasn't a single thing in the plaza. The white light still engulfed the outside of the plaza. This white light prevented any beast from flying in. How long have I been asleep? Luo Feng asked. 31 days. Barbata said. It's been long enough. Luo Feng exclaimed. He had been accepting the demon note inheritance for close to 12 years. Within these 12 years his soul had been in constant training and evolution. It had never gotten the chance to rest. Hence the fatigue kept growing and collecting. I've been extremely lucky this time. I originally thought I'd reach my limit at the 1200th level. Luo Feng laughed and exclaimed, I didn't expect to get the gold soul fruit with the Moshe clansman, changing a special property within my soul and allowing it to accept more of the inheritance. This allowed me to reach the 3211th level. The first part of the demon note inheritance had a total of 3,333 levels. In the trillions of years it has been there, over 100,000 life forms have accepted the inheritance. Almost all of them have been undyings. However, many undyings usually only reach the first part's later stages before ending. Luo Feng, relying on the gold soul fruit, actually got a result comparable to an undying inheritance end. Luo Feng stood in the plaza. There was only him there. During these 12 years, 5 years ago I tried letting the golden horned beast absorb the 98th blood river crystal and it was a success. Now I feel like I'm much stronger than 5 years ago. Maybe the 99th crystal will succeed too. Luo Feng was filled with excitement. Whatever he wished to do, he just did, immediately attempting to let the golden horned beast absorb the 99th crystal within the internal world. Back then on Blood River World, the Moshe clansmen relied on the automaton ship to decimate the Blood River World, wantonly raking in close to 10,000 Blood River crystals. Even though the golden horned beast's body was much bigger than the wild beast Chi Nyo, it barely managed to absorb up to 97 Blood River crystals. The killing intent from any crystal absorbed after was simply too terrifying. Luo Feng's willpower had no way to withstand it. Hence, back then he had to stop temporarily and quietly wait till a breakthrough occurred in the future. Demon Note Inheritance. During its training it constantly tested my withstanding ability. It's been a huge training factor for my willpower. And this inheritance is used to change one soul. It's already increased my soul's control by over 10 times. Luo Feng thought, plus these 12 years, my mental state training has never stopped. Mental state training was completely different from training other things. Like origin law comprehension and studying techniques, those require a large amount of focus and energy, etc. Mental state, however, didn't require so much. It was more of placing oneself in the right state of mind. For example, during battle, one had to collect oneself, otherwise losing control of one's emotions during the battle would result in only 70 to 80% of strength. And like Thunder God and Hong, their mental state training has reached an extremely high level. No matter how complex a situation, it wouldn't affect their state at all. Their battle abilities would in fact still shine through it. Others may exceed their usual abilities through special circumstances, and people like Hong, however, were able to unleash 200% of his power at any time. This was with the right mental state, allowing one to release his strength at an extreme level. Of course, in terms of mental state training, Hong had already reached a super level of sainthood in China's history. Even Thunder God, his mental state was only slightly weaker than Hong's. And Luo Feng was weaker than Thunder God by a little. Luckily, Luo Feng had Hong and Thunder God, the two great figures to teach and guide him, hence his mental state had always been improving. Mental state training didn't have much relation to the amount of time spent. And some warriors training, wanting to reach undying, had to train for at least a few tens of thousands of years, some requiring millions. However, in terms of mental state training, just a short 10 years was enough to reach an extremely high level. After all, the ancient people of China didn't have lifespans over 112 years. Over these 12 years, Luo Feng had improved quite a lot. It was a pity in the three great mental states, he was still only at the pinnacle of the first level. Of course, in terms of willpower alone, he was already incredibly strong. Luo Feng stood in the quiet plaza. Within his internal world, the enormous mountain range like golden horned beast, its huge golden eyes bigger than 2 ponds stared at the right scaled claw. The blood river crystal lay within. Number 99. The right claw clenched and a sharp claw slashed through the palm. Immediately the scales tore apart and that little tiny blood river crystal was controlled by the beast's spirit energy into the wound. From the touch, a formless energy immediately poured into the golden horned beast's body. Howl! It raised its head and let out a pained howl. This was a clash of killing intent and willpower. An endless amount of killing intent engulfed it, almost like countless war vehicles howling and forcing its way through. Luo Feng's willpower was condensed and sharp like a blade, defending against the many attacks. This pure clash of willpower, even if one had lots of strength and power, it wouldn't help this situation at all. I definitely must win, I definitely can win, this killing intent cannot defeat me, it cannot get through. Luo Feng's willpower roared. Time and again, persevering. Suddenly, the originally incredibly fierce killing intent backed away like a river, swiftly retracting. Simultaneously, the blood river crystal lying in the golden horned beast's right claw began to flow with blood river energy. The energy continuously entered the right claw, once again changing the beast's terrifying right claw. The pain once again attacked. One could only imagine the amount of pain the 99th crystal brought with it. It caused the golden horned beast to madly clash against the land, tearing through the mountain ranges. However painful, it could only bear with it. Finally, the pain subsided. The 99th crystal had completely fused with its right claw. Howl! The golden horned beast raised its head and howled happily, its howl reverberating throughout the endless internal world. It slightly raised its right claw, triggering the powerful blood river crystal within it, and immediately the claw began to undergo a change. Its bones, scales and muscles etc., up to the finest of its cells began to evolve from within. It immediately formed the dark gold claw, and on it were many little complex blood-red engravings. The engravings covered the entire right claw. They joined to form a picture, one of a beast howling. What a peculiar picture! Before, when he successfully absorbed the 98th crystal, the right claw's blood-red engraving picture that appeared didn't at all look like this beast howling. However, when the 99th went through, it added up to 100 other engravings that combined and made the originally scattered engravings much more complete than before. The engravings formed a complete beast, a lot like the beast of the beast god statue. The only difference was, it doesn't have the single horn like the beast god statue. And because it's missing the horn, it looks like this blood-red engraving picture is yet to be complete. I think when I successfully absorb the 100th, it'll be complete. I'll try and see if I can successfully absorb the 100th blood river crystal. The golden horned beast once again retrieved another crystal, trying once again to absorb it, within the plaza. Luo Feng stood in the plaza. The stone ground beside was covered in fresh blood. It was blood that the earth body spit out in pain while absorbing the 99th blood river crystal earlier. Absorbing the 100th crystal was a failure. Luo Feng rubbed the sweat off his forehead. The final absorption of the 100th crystal was indeed very difficult. I think it'll take a few more years after my willpower rises more before it'll succeed. Absorbing the 99th crystal was a success. The 100th was a failure. Luo Feng, however, was still very excited. Because according to the red engraving showing on its right claw, it was that of a beast howling, and that beast was almost completely similar to the beast god statue, only it was missing a horn, blood river crystal. It's indeed linked to the legendary beast god of Blood River world. Luo Feng thought, whether it's a blood warrior, black warrior, or the blood river energy the golden horned beast triggers, they are all linked to the beast god. And I think, after I successfully absorb the 100th crystal, the horn will appear. And after the entire picture is complete, there may be a huge surprise. Luo Feng was elated. He looked around the plaza. There weren't any other life forms but him there. Below, however, in the deep abyss world, there were trillions of beasts. Countless beasts, even undying level huge beasts, there were many of them. Time to go back. Luo Feng's body warped. He switched with the Mosha body and it instantly became an ice bear. A simple cute ice bear that looked about and rushed fiercely forward. The ice bear immediately passed through the white light barrier. It glanced down at the endless abyss world below with countless beasts. With a plop, it landed in the ice below, standing back up stupidly. The surrounding other stupid beasts all didn't even seem to notice this ice bear. The ice bear looked up at the 32 floating palaces above. All 32 of them have the white barrier? Following which, the light that protected Luo Feng's palace slowly began to dissipate. Looks like the other 31 palaces all have life forms accepting the inheritance. The ice bear glanced. Anyway, I've already accepted what I could, and I cannot get any more. Time to grasp the time and leave. The ice bear looked about. In the vast cold deep abyss world, no matter which direction he looked, it seemed endless. It was littered with endless beasts, and the number of beasts was simply unbelievable. How do I get out? Ice bear Luo Feng was stunned. How did I enter and how do I go? Back then it was due to Mo Luo's kick that he entered the hole and fell into the deep abyss world. However, flying out of the hole to leave, the deep hole region has many huge undying level beasts. Every one of them simultaneously watches over many holes. Just the undying beasts alone, their swallowing energy is terrifying. I best not mess with them. Luo Feng recalled. The entire region below the holes were all undying beasts. And while Luo Feng was in ice bear form, he didn't see any other beast fly into the holes. Even the other beasts don't fly into the holes. Whatever they are not doing, I cannot do. Luo Feng thought. Then, the ice bear immediately began to explore the deep abyss world. However, after 3 days, it still hadn't found a way to leave the area. It was getting anxious. I'll just follow one direction and keep walking. I don't believe I won't reach an end. The ice bear began to proceed in one single direction, occasionally running and flying millions of kilometers, occasionally stumbling and walking about. Just like that, it walked further and further. Gradually, the beasts it could see also got lesser. When will I actually walk out of this place? Ice bear Luo Feng muttered. It continued to proceed in one direction. The beasts within its view got so little that he would only occasionally spot one. Howl. Terrifying demon note instantly swept past the area. Ice bear Luo Feng only slightly shook. Even though it was a transformation of the Moshe clansman, the core within the ice bear was still after all Luo Feng, and the core was hidden within the soul. Naturally it would be affected by the demon note. This demon note should be able to affect a lower level sector lord warrior. Demon note? The ice bear suddenly stopped, its eyes staring wide, filled with human emotions. There's finally demon notes. After walking about in the deep abyss world for so long, it hadn't discovered a single demon note. Damn, I've finally encountered a demon note. Ice bear Luo Feng was incredibly excited, so excited he felt like crying. Discovering a demon note here, looks like I'm just about almost out of the deep abyss world. The ice bear was so excited it immediately became a blur as it flew. With one breath it flew several hundreds of thousands of kilometers, finally seeing the vast stone ice walls. There stood many caves. The familiar caves, the caves that I adore so. The ice bear waved its huge paws excitedly and immediately flew through one of the caves. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.